What is going on, guys? It's the Mad Dragon. We are back doing another preview video. This one is going to be for England versus South Africa. This is going to be a massive game. These preview videos are, of course, where we chuck on a game of Rugby 20 in the background, and then over the top, we talk about the official teams that have been announced, who we think is going to do well, who we think is going to do badly, maybe go over some game tactics, what we think might happen. It's going to be a really massive game. Really looking forward to this one. So let's get this game kicked off and underway. Alrighty, George Ford will get us kicked off. The wind's going really strongly to the left, so we'll kick off to the left as well and use the wind behind us a little bit. So, England versus South Africa. There's a lot of big games going on this weekend, but this will be one that I think the England fans will be really looking forward to. This is, of course, a rematch from the World Cup final. England, since that World Cup, have been sort of 50-50. They didn't have the best Six Nations. They got some good wins in the Summer Series, but not against necessarily the toughest opponents. They've come into the Autumn Series now. They just sort of decimated Tonga, as we sort of expected they would do. And then they went on to play Australia and came away with a win there. I would say it was quite a convincing win. I don't think the scoreboard was particularly reflective of how the game went, but I did think they did really well against Australia. There's a lot of positives for them to take away from that game, and I certainly think they'll be looking to challenge for this one, in all honesty. I mean, South Africa are playing well, but if there's a game that England will want to win over every game this year, it will be to beat the Springboks. So let's check out the team they've announced to play in this game. Starting off with the front row then. Bevan Rod. Yes, it is Bevan Rod. I could see Rude on my screen there. Bevan Rod, Jamie Blamire, and Kyle Singler. Now, this is a big switch-up, considering that South Africa, one of the biggest teams in the world for using that scrum, for using that maul. Probably a lot less caps than people were expecting. I have seen there's a bit of a chat going on between South Africa players and Kyle Singler making a couple of statements along the way. I haven't got fully invested in that one, but I think that front row will be a fierce battle. Hopefully, they're going to be able to sustain the pressure going on there, because we know how big that South African scrum is once they get going. In terms of the lock departments, we've got Maro Itoje and Johnny Hill. This was the partnership we saw through the Six Nations. A couple of people pointing out about the positives that this team brings now. The dropping of weight. I said a couple of people dropped down in the comments about weight drop, speed increase. They're using the mobility more. They're no longer the power England. They've moved more now towards that line speed defensively, the line speed attacking wise. Everyone's getting quicker. Everyone's getting faster. They're really beginning to add a bit of pressure in. One of the big changes here coming in this back three. Courtney Laws coming in as captain in the number 6 shirt. So really interesting to see that. Sam Underhill at 7 and Tom Curry at 8. Now I think 4 to 8, this seems to be the setup now that Eddie Jones is working with. I much prefer Tom Curry at 7, but he doesn't play terribly at 8. The choice for Courtney Laws to be captain is a really big move. I expect what was going to be happening in this game, as we saw last week, and the week before that actually, there was a lot of captain shifting, a lot of captain changes. So I think Eddie Jones is trying to build a team now where there's a number of leaders who can take over depending on what game they need him to. But what it also does is allows you to take focus off of some other people. With no Farrell going to be in this team, necessarily, then it means maybe you'd want to go to the ranks of maybe a Itoje. So that means the South Africans will target a Itoje far more. So the way to get around that is instead make Courtney Laws the captain. That means that you're now targeting Courtney Laws a little bit more, because as the captain, if you can wear him down a bit, if you can knock him over a few times, get a couple of big hits in, you begin to damage morale, except by doing that, you allow Itoje to have a much cleaner game himself. So maybe this is a clever tactic from Eddie Jones. But as a 1 to 8, this is a good 1 to 8, to be fair. I think maybe the only downside would maybe be the loose head hooker situation here. I think a lack of caps could come in there. We do know that the scrummaging is going to be a big part of this game, as it is in every England-South Africa game. So it'll be interesting to see how they get on, but hopefully they can cope with that pressure. Moving towards the backs then, Ben Youngs and Marcus Smith going to be retaining that half-back partnership. I thought Marcus Smith played pretty well against Australia. There was definitely a couple of clever little manoeuvres. They're definitely utilising their backs a lot more in this England team. A lot of people playing in a lot of different positions. And I think Marcus Smith is being able to hold his ground. A lot of pressure on the young lad to live up to a couple of expectations, but I think he's playing very well. In the centre partnership, Manu Tuilagi moves back to the inside centre from the wing last week, where he pretty much played in the centre the whole game anyway. He didn't really spend a lot of time out on the wing. And then Henry Slade in the outside centre. So no Owen Farrell starting. Again, is this another clever tactical decision? Who knows? Eddie Jones likes to keep his cards close to his chest. I think this will work well. I think Tuolagi and Slade actually bring a very similar thing to Diolende and Am. I think Diolende is a much more headstrong smash through the line player. It sort of reflects in Tuolagi, and then you've got the more tactical player like Lukanya Am, who's very good in terms of handling, in terms of kicking, in terms of working his way around the field, and that's sort of like Henry Slade. So I think they've matched that pretty well in terms of a centre partnership in the middle there. And finally in the back three, Johnny May taking over the left wing, Joe Marchant, a name I haven't heard from for a little while now, I'm taking over that right wing, and Freddie Stewart in that 15 shirt. Now, Freddie Stewart had a good game, managing to get himself a really nice try against Australia. Now, it's a difficult team to just sort of walk through Australia, but Freddie Stewart making a nice little impact in that game, so it'll be nice for him. Johnny May and Joe Marchant, again, there's big competition now for those winger positions. People like Radwin were coming in, showing off really good work. I haven't heard anything from Anthony Watson. I don't know if there's an injury to Watson anywhere along the way. But it'd be nice to see him coming in. Max Malins, not getting the cut as well. Could have got in there somewhere as well. So, a couple of people that could be putting their name in the hat to get on this team. But they're holding out really well. And I think 1 to 15, maybe you'd argue lesser capped, but then this is what Eddie Jones wanted. He wanted to cut out 30% of the team that played in that World Cup. He wanted a new team. He wants to move towards the next World Cup. This is the only way to get these players used to it. It's play the biggest team maybe in the world. They're still world ranked number 1, I think, at this point, with New Zealand losing to Ireland. So I think that's a really good move. And because now we're moving towards half-time, we will talk about the finishers. Starting off in this 16 shirt, Nick Dolly, who's not someone I know a great deal about. Joe Marler in that 17 shirt, and Will Stewart. So a little bit more experience in the props department. But in terms of hooker, what a time to be making some of your few appearances in the game, going up against South Africa. Big pressure in that second half. I don't think this is a terrible move. I think we've all seen now what South Africa bring with that bomb squad coming on in that second half, the way they try just to dominate scrums at that point. I think having people with experience like Joe Marler and Will Stewart coming on, I think hopefully they'll be able to hold out a little bit. And then the replacement forwards for the rest of the team, Charlie Ewells, who I'm sure will come on at some point, probably in that lock position. Sam Simmons, who's got a replacement 8. I believe he also can play flanker, but I only ever really see him play at 8. And then finally, Alex Dornbrand. So they've gone for the 6-2 split, as would be expected. South Africa lay down the gauntlet when you play them. They pretty much just throw out that we're going to use the forwards a whole bunch, and you need to outdo us. Some teams go for different methods. Some teams try to play it more out the backs. You've got teams like Wales who just try and keep it and play as long as possible, just to try and tire out the players. England have gone for the 6-2 split, try and add in more forwards to try and stop the South Africans from using that scrum and that maul as much as possible. And then there's some good players in here. Sam Simmons, we really didn't get to see have a good run out against Australia, which was a shame. I thought he did well in the Lions series, and again, he didn't really get a massive run out there against South Africa either. So he'll hopefully be relishing this chance, and hopefully he'll get on a little bit earlier. And the final replacements, Rafi Quirk and Max Malins, who I mentioned earlier on. So there's a couple of interesting support players here. Again, not necessarily big caps. They're not talking about big caps. Eddie Jones talks about this utility team, people being able to interchange positions. He's got full confidence that this team will be able to do the job. So, big pressure on a lot of these young lads here, but hopefully they will be able to step up against the likes of South Africa. Let's talk about the opposition of South Africa here now. South Africa are having a really good autumn series. They managed to sort of scrape their way past Wales by just playing the game plan they like to do. And then last week against Scotland, it was a much tighter game than I thought it was going to be, all the way up until the 70th minute or so. But then that pressure from South Africa, they just don't stop. As it gets later and later into that game, as soon as a scrum crumbles once, it just opens up and can be a bit of an issue for them. There's a couple of players that I really don't think played well last week. I think Herschel Yantes was all over the place. I don't know why he was struggling so much. He really not doing well. LaRue, I thought, also had quite a bad game last week. So I think there's a couple of areas they can even look to try and improve on. But I think maybe this England team's got a tough game ahead of them, because I'm sure they'll be adding a bit of pressure in here. Especially, they don't have no longer have Rassie Erasmus's Waterboy post. So it'll be interesting to see how they get on with that one. So let's have a look at the South African team. And to be honest, it's going to be a team we've all seen before, probably by now. Oxenche, Mombanambi, Nyankane. Yep, so this is the same front row we're seeing now every week. Again, but it's good to see these people every so often, you know, just bring up that synergy, get them used to playing with each other. I think that's a good move. The lock department this time is going to be Etzebeth and De Jager. Etzebeth played really well against Scotland. I was very, very impressed. Normally, I think he's too aggressive when he plays. I think he hit that right level last week of just took the step back. No need to get in fights, no need to get wound up, but just got in and did his job. Disrupting the line out, get himself in there. Some of the big hits we saw it on Finn Russell. Thought he had a really, really good game, so looking forward to seeing more from him. Khaleesi's going to retain that captaincy. We've got Quagga Smith in the 7 shirt and Dwayne Vermeulen ordering around that defence in the 8 shirt. So this is the 1-8 we're seeing now in this autumn series. This will probably be the same 1-8 we'll see going towards the World Cup, to be honest. They're not really putting a foot wrong. The scrum is looking solid. The line-out's looking really good. They've got multiple jumpers. Sia Khaleesi's playing really, really good rugby at the minute as well. I think they're in for a bit of a stormer. Moving towards the halfback partnership, we've had a couple of changes here from the Antilles boys last week, who I don't think played very well. Cobus Reinach's going to take over in that scrum half, and Andre Pollard will take over at 10. I don't really think Andre Pollard did the best game when he came on from the bench last week, but I still would put him ahead of Yantes. And Reinach, God, I would put him miles ahead of Herschel Yantes. I thought Herschel Yantes had a terrible game. I couldn't actually believe he stayed on till half-time. I'd have taken him off about 25-30 minutes in, to be honest. But I'm sure now with a bit more experience, players like this will have played in that World Cup as well. They'll be looking to do some good damage. In the centre partnership, we have Dialende and Am. This is the centre partnership we see now. People refer to them as some of the best centres in the world, and Lacania Am is just bringing up that number 13 shirt now. He's making it a real nuisance for so many teams to deal with, and Dialende will absolutely crash through the line. And then the back three, Mapimpi, Jesse Creel, and LaRue. Now, Mapimpi, of course, the try-scorer machine, playing really well. England will know how much damage he will do. He, of course, scoring those tries in that World Cup. No Cheslin Colby to worry about this week, but Jesse Creel is still a very, very hard player. He will defend his line with absolutely everything. Looking forward to see from him. LaRue, again, I don't think he's that good. I personally would prefer to see Stain on for the whole game. LaRue just struggles so much when you put him under pressure. If I was England, he would be absolutely the target man. If you're going to do box kicks, if you're going to kick downfield, I'd absolutely be targeting LaRue. And then in the replacements, because we're getting towards the end of the game here, Marks, Kitchoff and Koch, as we see pretty much every week, Mostert and Weiss, Herschel Yantes, Elton Yantes, and Franz Stain, of course, in that fullback shirt. So this is pretty much like the old versus the new, it feels like now. This is the pretty set South Africa team against a still sort of mutating, manipulating England team who are changing positions and swapping about. So what do we think about a score prediction? That'll be the one. I think a lot of people have a lot of different opinions on this one. I think this England team's looking fierce. They're looking to go forwards more, a lot more aggressive. We saw it in Tonga game. We saw it in the Australia game. They're looking to go forwards and put points on if they can do. But for me personally, I think experience could weigh out here. I'm going to lean slightly more towards South Africa. I don't think it'll be by much. South Africa don't really seem to be slamming teams. They seem to just sort of be tickling over those 3-pointers when they can do. And if they get those maul tries they can do, they certainly show though that they can struggle to even get over the cross line against people like Scotland. So I'm going to say South Africa to win by... I'm going to say 7. I'm going to keep it exactly on one score. But of course, guys, like I say in all these videos, I am but one man on the internet talking nonsense about rugby. I know we have quite a few South African subscribers and quite a few England subscribers on the channel. So make sure you guys drop down in the comments how you think this game's going to go. Who do you think is going to win? What do you think the score difference is going to be? Because I really do enjoy reading through the comments. And I really enjoy getting a bit of engagement with you guys as well. But this is set to be a really big match. There's going to be a couple of really big games on this week, including France versus New Zealand, Wales versus Australia. And I'm sure this will be one of the headlines for the weekend that a lot of people will be paying attention to. There are a bunch of other preview videos on the channel. We will be doing one for all of week 4. So make sure you subscribe to the channel just to keep up to date with all the latest videos as they come out. And make sure you hit that bell notification. That way you guys will know when the videos come out before everyone else. If you do enjoy these videos, guys, and you do want to see more like this, make sure you drop this video a like, because it really does help the channel out and it is really appreciated. I'm looking forward to another fun weekend of rugby and I hope you all are too. I will see you all next time, guys. Bye bye.